So today we have Dr. Gilad Feldman from the University of Hong Kong. His research focuses on judgment decision-making and morality and personal values. In recent years, he has been a very active advocate of open science practices and principles. Specifically, he has led a mass replication project with Hong Kong U students, graduate and undergraduate, as well as early career researchers. So, up until present, the project has completed nearly 100 replication and extension studies on judgment decision making and social psychology findings. And the project has received commendation from SIPS, the Society for the Improvement of Psychological Science. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Gilad Feldman, and Philly, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity and for the introduction. It's everything that you described is like usually when people refer to the replications that we do, the meta science, some of the resources that we developed, they name me, but this is part of a large collaboration, and some of the people here are part of this. So Qinyu definitely is a big part of this. So I see this as us leading together these mass collaboration replications, a lot of the guides that we have. So both Qinyu and Bill, who just graduated, I heard his PhD, were teaching assistants and working with me in my courses. So helping me do these things and trying things out with the undergraduates at University of Hong Kong. Some names that I see over here, definitely people that I take inspiration from in the open science community. We meet at Society of Improvement of Psychological Science. So if you can, please do join us at the end of June in the future sessions of SIPS. But I met them, I follow them on Twitter, I see the activity happening in China, in different parts of Asia. I really wish we had a bit more of a community in Hong Kong. I've been trying to push this forward and build something like this. But right now it's mostly at University of Hong Kong. And I'm hoping that we can build some bridges, Hong Kong, China, world together, coming in order to support open science. When the Chinese Open Science Network reached out to me to ask me to give a talk, I was trying to kind of think what would be appropriate, what is the nice contribution that I can do here. And I'm assuming that an open science network knows a little bit about open science, but still I included some slides that explain my general view. I will try to go through these very briefly and get to the solutions, but I'm very open to discussing also these, or at least using this as a starter for a discussion about what is the status of science, what is open science, and then leading that into register reports and peer community in register reports. All the slides are downloadable, so you're very welcome to go over here. I did not know what is blocked and what is not blocked in China. So I'm assuming Open Science Framework is open, so hopefully you can see the slides and download this. If not, I'll make this available afterwards, and we'll find some place in China that will host the slides as well. But really, open, share this as much as possible. If you have any questions about any of that, please do follow up. And a good reason to download the slides is because there are lots of hidden slides and lots of links. So you can click on stuff that you have more questions about. You can look at the hidden slides and then find some more information. I don't know about YouTube from China, but all the stuff that we do is available both on the Open Science Framework and on YouTube. And I try to, the last 2 years, make all of the talks that I do open. Some of the stuff you also find from Qinyu, some tutorials that we have, some guides about all sorts of things. So all of that is in this YouTube channel in the Open Science Framework. I'll start by a very obvious generalized statement about we're facing some major challenges in the world. I think the pandemic is a good example of just how bad things get very, very fast. And for 2 years now, it seems like some of the world is going past this, and we're at a better stage. But this would not have been possible if we wouldn't be relying on science to give us solutions, at least first understanding what the situation is and why it's happening, and then providing us with very quick ways to address this with vaccines and such. And if you look at the next decade or two, we have some big challenges. Depending on who you talk to, the challenges are going to be different, but definitely climate change and global warming are big challenges, but also all sorts of things about health, economics, and other challenges that require solutions from science. So we depend on science, and we must ensure that the solutions are credible and that they're accurate, and that we communicate these effectively and bring the solutions to the public. But the main question that we should ask ourselves is, how is science doing? And even before that, I think about this every day. How do we know how well science is doing? When I started my PhD, I had some assumptions about, science has figured everything out, so I can just come in and use this. There's no need for me to contribute anything about how the science should be conducted. But then I was very surprised to learn of all sorts of challenges that we're going through science. So science is definitely working. Some stuff is happening. We have electricity, planes are flying, all sorts of things are going well, but not everything is going well. And when it comes to things like, say, cancer biology, so it's not my field, I'm a psychologist, but the big earthquake that came out just in December 2021 is this big project that started in 2012, 2013 by the Center of Open Science, Tim and Brian. So they were very ambitious, following some signs that replication rates are not as high as we would have expected, with some published findings about precognition, feeding the future, some publications about false positive psychology. We started to do some stuff in psychology, but then the question was, what is also the replication rate in some of the harder sciences, the more exact sciences, like the medical sciences, that have even stronger implications for people in their life? So preclinical cancer biology, we do want to make sure that things are solid over there. But if you look at this recent publication, they designed 193 studies, they conducted 87 experiments, they completed 50. What did they find? This is a summary tweet by one of the leading people about open access, open science. Here's the summary tweet: let's replicate 50 cancer studies, high impact. Sorry, we can only really conduct them well for 18 of those. How well did we do? 5 out of 50 is a full replication, 7 out of 50 partial replication. So if you think about this, this is 12 out of 50, which are actually 193. So first, we can't reproduce things. We don't have the materials. We can't contact the original authors and get some solid information about how things were conducted. Even in the things that were conducted, we can't get things to replicate very well. Even if they replicate, it's only a partial replication with effect sizes. So as long as people were, talking about psychology not being that important, fine. Hard sciences, medical sciences, it seems like the problem is not limited to psychology and some other fields as well. And the question is, when we see these things, is like, how big are these issues? And my claim is that these issues are very big, and we should pay attention to them, and we should try and understand why these things are happening. So it's not just cancer research that is broken and some things are not functioning very well, but this is, I think, a slide that we should include in the beginning of every talk that we have. It's not just psychology, it's not just medicine, not just chemical research, it's not just economic, it's not just empirical computer science. This is a science problem, and it's across the fields, and it's about the way that we do science. In psychology, we've tried quite a bit. Also, the Center of Open Science has led some of these things, but not only. We have a bunch of applications. Also, our team trying to understand what the situation is in psychology. And as you can see over here, with the Many Labs 1, Many Labs 2, Many Labs 3, of our top journals over here, it's the Science and Nature. It doesn't get much higher than that. What is the replication rate? It's about 50%, 30 to 50%. And in the things that work, the effect size is typically about half of the original. This is my unofficial summary of the situation. Now, once we understand this is happening, the question is, why is this happening? So I try to outline some of the major challenges for why this might be the case, which would be kind of like the beginning of why we need registry reports. So it's important to first understand what the challenges are in order for us to understand how we can address those. So I like this slide very much because it really captures very well what I feel every day when I do research as a researcher in a university that has all kinds of incentives. I am a tenure track. In 2 years, I'm supposed to face a tenure committee. And I can say this, I have no problem of sharing this with you, that the tenure committee in my university are not happy with me because what I do is not aligned with what it is that they aim for. They have a ref coming up, which is like a way that they're being evaluated by the government, which really cares about all sorts of things like impact factors, like the number of publications I should aim for, Science, Nature, PNAS, and all of that. So on the one side, we have the current incentives that lead to problematic research practices. And then on the other side, we have really restrained researchers that depend on these incentives in order to survive in this system. And it's very difficult for any open science scholar to find the right balance between these two. Ideally, the incentives would be aligned with what researchers should do, open science, what's good for society, what's good for science, what's good for addressing the big challenges that the world is facing. But there is a big conflict over here where it's pushing to different sides. And just one of these examples is, this is James Heathers. I think it's a prominent name that many people know because of a podcast, Everything Hurts. And he is one of the people who have left academia and moved into industry. And here he talks about impact factor, which is a ridiculous metric that has been shown to be flawed in many ways. It's not even like an open matrix that you can evaluate and see. It's, first of all, it's a product and you can massage it, you can change it in all sorts of ways. And then everything that they do about the calculations is, under the table, irreproducible. And he talks about this in this. And the amazing thing is that everything in academia, the way that we are hired, promoted, is being based on these impact factors. So what am I supposed to do in early career researcher in University of Hong Kong, where impact factors, come up in almost every email and meet, that I want to do research that, is credible, open, trustworthy. Another big challenge is this for-profit publishers, and this is a major issue. I can't even begin to describe the irony and how much we failed our stakeholders by submitting to these publishers, by peer reviewing for these publishers, by taking any part in giving them any money to these publishers that add very little, if anything, to the process. And most recently, in the attempt for a push by the Europeans and some people in the world for open access, some journals say, yeah, sure, we'll do open access. We just need you to pay a little bit. How much? How about $11,000? And some people say, but who is going to pay $11,000 to publish a paper? And it's, people will pay. Why? Because they have to. We're being taken hostage by these publishers, and this is academics, and makes you wonder. So what we've got over here is that researchers give their articles to publishers for free. They give their copyrights for free. We peer review for free. Universities pay as much as the publishers ask them to. And the question is, why don't we move away from this? This is inexcusable. Why have we created this system? And once we understood that this is the system, why are we not moving away from this? At the very least, we need to move from these publishers to leverage the community power. We have the technology to set up our own journals. We know how to empower authors. We can decrease the dependence on the publishers. We can increase the options. And we need, as a general rule, to move to Diamond, which is no fee open access publishers. I don't know, I didn't include this here, but I think it's a hidden slide. For example, Metapsychology is a new no fee open access journal that is doing a big revolution in the field of psychology. So I strongly recommend, this is my personal choice whenever I have an ability to choose what journal I go to. I really try and make this a diamond open access in order to move away from publishers. Yes, my university is going to be upset, but I feel like this is the moral, ethical thing to do. And if we don't do this, who is going to do this? At some point, we need to do this kind of change. Another thing that we've been studying, I've been studying in my lab with my team, is about researchers being human. I study judgment and decision-making. I care about biases and heuristics. And turns out that because researchers are human, we apply these biases in the research process. So we have outcome bias, confirmation bias, hindsight bias. So we get reviewers to reject our manuscript from our replication because, you know, if it's a successful replication, of course it's a successful replication. We knew this all along, not surprising at all. If it's a failed replication, of course we knew it's a failed replication, not surprising, we knew this all along, we didn't expect anything. So whatever it is that you show the reviewers, they're gonna have some hindsight bias regarding this. Outcome bias is that whatever it is that you see, if it's a positive or negative outcome, it influences the credibility or the evaluation of the actual decision. But we should really take outcome away from that. We should evaluate the rigor of the method for what it is. So we have all these sins. At the beginning, Chris Chambers came up with the book in 2015 called this The 7 Deadly Sins of Psychology. However, by now, we know these are not the 7 deadly sins of psychology. These are the 7 deadly sins of science. We're all scientists. We are biased, and therefore these are inherent. How do we know that these are inherent in our research life cycle? We have increasing meta-scientific evidence for that. So for example, from generating a hypothesis to design study, to collecting data, to analyzing data and testing hypothesis, to interpreting data. In each and every step of those, we now know that we're doing very, very badly. So for example, we have this obsession with novelty. We only publish things that are new. We never go and reassess and revisit. Only 1 in 1,000. And I think that's an underestimate of the papers. Our replications, I welcome you to think about what do you think the right rate is in a journal? What should be the ratio? But it couldn't be that we only published something once in the 1970s, and since then, 50 years, we keep saying, yes, because this was published based in a sample of 30 Princeton students in the 1970s, for the rest of the life, for the entire population from around the world, this is going to hold, and we never need to replicate this again. Let's do some more TED Talks and books. This is unsustainable. When we do design studies, we run these on very small samples. In social psychology and judgment decision making, we're privileged because we can run large samples, but most of my department are neuroscientists, so developmental scientists. So babies come to the lab, put somebody in the scanner, and that's going to cost you a lot of money and time. So your samples are typically 10, 20, now rising to 30, 40. But low statistical power has implications, and now we know just how bad things are. Questionable research practices, I'm not going to even start going there. It's like a very, very worrying situation. And then we do things like harking. And of course, we don't share anything. We don't, can you imagine like a world where we need to evaluate something like vaccination for a pandemic, and we can't even see the data? Yeah, the pharmaceutical company tells us this works. We should just take their word for it. In order to assess science, we need to see, and not just the data, we need to see the materials, the code, the process. We need independent replications outside. So everything about us not sharing data is just ridiculous. Something that needs to change, and fast. What is the cost of this madness? For a single flawed study, here is Sanjay sharing about $1 billion based on something that Dorothy, so one study in 1996 led to many people trying to invest in this, and over $1 billion wasted on somebody that published a study that doesn't seem to hold. And the amazing thing is that really, when you look at the original study, it just seems like I don't know why we even went in that direction. So it's very sad. And we have some examples for this in psychology as well. So we need to think about this very carefully. So my point here is, when we pressure students, researchers, community, stakeholders to produce great results, impact factors, and incentives are misaligned, when the culture is results novelty focused and everything is about competition and profit, and there's no transparency assessment, then things go badly. And then the question is, can we really do something about this? Can we get back on track? My summary of the situation, it's on a typical slide that I summarized that very gloomy outlook of what the science is right now, is that regardless of whether you agree that this is indeed happening, I think the main message is that as science, the one thing that differentiates science from any other thing, like say a religion, is that we talk about things openly. We share those, we reflect, we reassess, and we aim to improve. That's part of the scientific process. So regardless of whether you agree that something worrying is happening, it's always good to improve, and we should invest resources in that. I like this slide that from the climate, global warming sort of thing, where we talk about all sorts of things that we all want. We all want livable cities, clean water and air. We want healthy children. And then somebody says, but what if it's all a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? Let's please create a better world. If you disagree with this, what's the point of stopping all these initiatives? Same thing with open science. It's like we talk about data sharing, more transparency, removing bias, better use of statistics. And then somebody comes and says, but maybe there's no replication crisis. Maybe it's all a big hoax and we create a better science for nothing. Let's please work together to improve science and create a better science, regardless of what your opinion is. And I'm really trying to shift the way that I describe what it is that I do. So we provide services. We want to get as many people on board. It's not my role to judge other people and what it is that they do, but we have solutions, and we should use those solutions rather than sticking with the status quo. If my word is not enough, then big achievement for open science. So in March, finally, a group of people from around the world that have actual impact in UNESCO came up with the UNESCO recommendations for open science. So it's no longer me and a bunch of people on Twitter coming up and saying, yeah, we need to change, we need to change. It's UNESCO that says we must adopt open science. This needs to happen for us to improve open science. So if UNESCO is behind this and wanting to put some resources into this and spreading the word and having this kind of report, then we really should pay attention to what it is that they're saying, and hopefully that will lead to a big change. All right, so after this very long kind of introduction, I feel it's needed in order for us to move to the next stage. So let's say that we agree that we need to improve science. Now what? Where do we start with this? And my claim here, the main message for me in this talk, is that one of the solutions is already here. It's amazing, and we should do this. It's surprising for me just how slow the uptake is. It's been around since 2013, and we already arrived to a point where we have about 300 journals, but it's not fast enough. Especially a pandemic gets you thinking about, should we just wait for another decade or two for things to happen, or should we act now? I think some here who have listened to my talks before, I used to be very calm about things and a lot more positive on this, but I think the pandemic really hit something in me, where I realized that we must make a change, and I need to make a stand. And regardless of my own career and what it is that I'm facing, somebody needs to say this, and hopefully more and more people will say this, and then a change will happen. But we really do need an urgent change in the way that we do things in a science reform, and registered reports seem to be the future. If you want to see more about this, like hands-on how to do this, this is a 3-hour workshop on YouTube in the OSF. that you can go and watch. The nice thing about this is that I conduct a registered report with data collection online live. And I even display an interesting effect called the default effect about the adoption of open science practices. So we pre-register together, we collect data together, and then we analyze the data together all in one shot. It's not a registered report because registered report includes a peer review, but we do a pre-registration live. So I really recommend you go through this. And it's amazing just how well things are, because all the predictions went well. So it's nice when things come together live with a workshop like that. So Chris Chambers, the same person from the 7 Sins of Psychology or 7 Sins of Science, who wrote this book, got tired of the current publication system and all these broken things that I showed you. So in 2013, when he was invited to be editor in Cortex, which is relatively high impact journal. I think most of the neuroscientists in my department would love to publish in Cortex. He said, I'm going to be an editor only if you allow me a new type of publication process. And since then, revolutionary. It has expanded. He is an editor in a bunch of other journals, including the peer community and registered reports that I will talk about towards the end. And the interesting thing about this is that rather than first you completing everything, you design the study, you do everything, and then submit to the journal, here the main revolution in registered report is that the peer review happens before the experiments are conducted. So here's a summary of our broken system. So you do everything and then you submit this, but then all the problems with outcome bias, hindsight bias, and a bunch of other things. It's like, I don't like what it is that you did, therefore I'll reject you. Or I found a mistake, therefore go and rerun the study again. So that doesn't make any sense. This is too late to correct anything, and then all sorts of biases come into play. So having the traditional system where the peer review is only at this stage after everything has been conducted is broken, and it leads to a lot of problems that we talked about from before. Now, what registered reports tries to change is to say we have 2 stages of peer review. The first one takes place after you design the study. So you have a pre-registration plan. And then you, together with the reviewers, act as more of a team, because you both think about whether this is the most rigorous test of the proposed theory and hypothesis. So then the questions are the hypotheses well-founded? Are the methods proposed analysis feasible and sufficiently detailed? Issues of power are less, problematic than in traditional one, because you can ensure together with the reviewers that things are well-powered and that there's enough positive controls. And then in the second stage, the only thing that happens is that once there's a peer review stage 1 and you and the editor and the reviewers have agreed on a certain plan, they gave you constructive feedback. If there's a mistake, you correct it, then you give it back, and then they approve. Then the journal issues something that is called in-principle acceptance, which means that the paper is going to be published regardless of the outcomes, as long as you follow the plan. So in stage 2 peer review, the only thing that reviewers actually do is check whether the authors follow the approved protocol, or if there are deviations, that's okay. You document the deviations and you explain why. If these are major deviations, you need to check this with the editor, but deviations are possible. But also, of course, did it work well? Are the conclusions justified by the data? So it's no longer about, is this rigorous enough? Because this is peer review stage 1. Stage 2 is just to ensure that you've followed the plan or documented all the deviations and agreed together with the editor. So from this traditional model of all these problems inherent in the system, suddenly we don't have this problem, because there's no publication bias, there's no outcome bias, because the stage 1, they don't see the outcome. The outcome hasn't happened yet. It eliminates all the incentives to p-hack, because you get an in-principle acceptance regardless of the outcomes. You ensure rigor and statistical power and reproducibility, because everything is inherent in the system for the reviewers to be able to evaluate your stage 1 and stage 2. And almost all of the registered reports are implemented in open science supportive journals. They have policies regarding archiving of materials, data, and the code. So revolution number one started in 2013, Cortex, Chris Chambers. But as you can see, the open science community, especially at the beginning in psychology, but not only, really grows very, very rapidly. And by now we have over 300 journals, not just in neuroscience and psychology, but across the field in almost everything. And you can see that even PLOS biology and PLOS1 and PeerJ and a bunch of other wide science journals have adopted this. And you can go and have a look at the big list that they have. This is a science pyramid, science evidence pyramid, which I think we should really consider very carefully, especially when we have a pandemic going on, but in almost everything that we do. So, you know, coming in as an assistant professor to the University of Hong Kong, and having to think, you know, what am I going to teach them? And then they give me this social psychology textbook. And as I flipped through it, I realized 2018, after 6 years of doing replications, that almost in every other page, there's a problem in there. And the question is, what do I do with this? Do I just stick with the slides that I was given and tell my students that this is what we're going to do? This is reality. Or am I going to be really clear and transparent with them about what is going on? So all the slides that I showed you about, you know, the registered reports are from Chris Chambers, but I especially like this one with the science pyramids. So Chris did this part over here, and I added a little bit on top of this. What Chris is saying, and I completely agree with this, that by now, status quo research that is not pre-registered, that doesn't have open science, open data, is a trust system. The question is, do you trust or don't you trust? And some people say, yes, if it's from Princeton, Harvard, whatever, I trust. And for me, I don't. I want to see evidence for this. So for me, status quo research, if there are no pre-registered or registered report replications of this with open data, open code, open materials, independent labs looking at this from different angles, this is barely worth a mention. And this, in my opinion, should not inform policy. And anytime this is mentioned, we should say, this is exploratory, this is the little that we found, and we need an accumulation of evidence that is more credible than what we're doing right now. A little bit better than this is if we have open science, data, materials, and all that, but we call this exploratory open science. So somebody found something with a sample of, I don't know, 30, 50, somewhere at some point in some lab. That's terrific, but at least we can assess this and we can see what to do with this, so exploratory, but then we can repeat this again and again, pre-registered with a plan, with predictions, independent labs looking at this from different directions. So confirmatory open science is getting a little bit closer to green, but I think registered reports are really the way to go, because this is the way that peer review should really happen. The science project process is cleaner. And then hopefully in a decade or two, we'll have more and more meta-analyses of registered reports that are, you know, studies that are pre-registered and everything archived. So not just one study that is a registered report, but many registered reports repeating something about a certain phenomenon, and then we can aggregate this in order to get closer to the estimation of the effect size. In my humble view, also meta-analyses need to be registered reports. So we have templates for that. You know, our team, we've worked on making that happen. So if you want to do a registered report for meta-analysis, you can go on my website and see some of the templates. So we have a coding sheet, and we have the R markdown for you, and we have you know, what a manuscript should look like. And the future really is that not we do a meta-analysis every 10, 20 years, but every time a new study comes in, it is automatically plugged into the meta-analysis, and it is continuously updated automatically. So this is definitely good for science, and we discussed a little bit how, but this is also good for authors. This is good for you. I'm actually quite amazed that authors are not doing this more. There's so much brainwash going on about the current system, where status quo bias is so strong that it's difficult to align people to go to register reports. I can just tell you, one of the very few register reports that I've been able to conclude are with Qinyu. And before Qinyu, I approached a lot of people in my team, people from outside, saying, do you want to try a register report with me? Who wants to try? Who wants to try? And most of the people say, yeah, we want to try, but impact factors, we need to get promoted, we need to get hired, we don't know how long this is still in process. And Ginny was one of the first who said, yes, please, let's try something together, especially if it's good for science, and see what happens. And I think it also like a demonstration of how it's also good for authors, because we completed that project in less than a year. And I think really good feedback. And the first place where we submitted to is the place that we got accepted. So Chris Chambers talks about rejection rates in Cortex going down from 90% in the traditional model because of all these biases, outcome bias, hindsight bias, no, reject, to register reports where if there's a problem, then you just tell the authors, and the authors correct this and they improve this. So there's no reason to reject in a register report. So can you imagine, just if judgment and decision-making perspective, you want to maximize your output, going down from 90% rejection rate to 10, how come nobody is doing this? This is like the first thing that you would want to do. But impact factors, okay, whatever. So expert reviewer feedback. So I don't know if what I'm doing is good or not good. I'm still consider myself to be an early career researcher. Plus, I'm trying to unlearn many of the things that I've learned during my PhD. So I need expert feedback to tell me where I'm going wrong. Not only am I getting amazing feedback from experts, I'm also getting amazing feedback from students who are not brainwashed in the same kind of system. So feedback from the entire community, the more that I share, the more that I get feedback. And one of the nice things about register reports is that I can share everything. I can share a preprint, I can get feedback, and I can learn from everybody, starting from students, high school, undergraduates, masters, and all the way up to the expert. And at the end, you get accepted. So once you have an IPA, you can already put this on your CV, even before you collected data. So rather than saying I have a manuscript in writing, in process, data collection ongoing, you write, I have an in-principle acceptance from the journal, and then you can put this on your CV. And you can also go on Twitter or to funders and say, I already have in-principle acceptance from a journal. Now it's time for you to fund me. Or I have in-principle acceptance from a journal. Who wants to be my co-author? And suddenly, let's say that you don't have a lot of resources. You don't have data collection. You don't have money. You don't have the right equipment and lab. Then you go on Twitter. You offer people co-authorship to collect the data, to write things together. This is how we worked in the open science community. And in-principle acceptance from a journal makes that all much easier. Also, peer review is much better. The reviewers are really engaged. So this is Emma summarizing from the Twitter community about how reviewers feel. So for example, reviewers over here reviewing first stage 1 register reports. It's great to give feedback that can be acted upon. Honestly, right now, if I get invitations for reviews, first of all, I'm pro-initiative. So there has to be open code, data, materials. This is like, for me to accept anything, this is a prerequisite, but I'm much more likely to say yes, even if I'm super busy, to a register report than I am to anything else, because then I can put in, my own, I can contribute, I can say something that can be acted on rather than just editor using what it is that I say to reject. And there's some evidence that this is good for science. So you can see over here, this is a preprint showing the rate of positive supported hypothesis. So from standard reports, about 92% going down to less than 50 in registered reports. So this really removes outcome bias, hindsight bias. This is terrific. Also, in what is the closest, I think, that we've had to a randomized control trial of registered reports, people who did not know whether an article is a registered report or not evaluated its rigor and all sorts of other factors. And as you can see, on methods rigor, quality of methods, analysis rigor, conclusions justified, and just generally the overall quality of the paper, registered reports just seem to be higher on everything. So that's nice. First registered report that we got in principle acceptance is this one. It was actually a meta-analysis. This is a workshop that I came in to do in Singapore. So one of the models that I do is that I come in for a week or two, we do 2-3 sessions, and then we complete a manuscript of a registered report for a meta-analysis. We did this. It was accepted in principle acceptance from the Journal of Research in Personality. Krishna is also moving to our region. He just moved to PolyU, so he is one of us. He used to be in Singapore, and now he's part of the Hong Kong community. So that's a nice addition to Hong Kong. And the reason why I'm mentioning Krishna over here is because I asked him to reflect on this as a senior editor in JPSB, one of our top journals in social psychology. I asked him, what do you think about this process, doing a registered report? So he wrote all of this in here. I'll let you read this afterwards. I'll just summarize this for you. He says, this has been by far the most rewarding research experience that he has done. And he is a senior editor, and he has submitted, just look, he's a prolific researcher. He has done many good publications in his life, but this was one of the most rewarding experiences for him. And it has a lot of clarity, and there's no second guessing. So removes a lot of the issues in the process. This one is from Qinyu. So that's the one that I was describing when Qinyu came and did the MPhil at the University of Hong Kong. And I said, how about you join me in doing some replications? Can we submit this as a registered report? And Qinyu was supportive of this and enthusiastic about taking lead and bringing this to completion. Here you have comprehensive results in social psychology, which is a new journal, rising in the in its impact on the community. And the nice thing about this journal is the first one that only publishes registered reports. So we wanted to try that out and see how that works, and that was a very positive experience. So as you can see, Qinyu over here is the lead author, and I asked him to also reflect on this, and I'll also ask him to say a few words in a second. But this is what he sent in. I'm going to summarize this for you. Registered reports reduce uncertainty. It gives you more confidence that you're catching errors, because as an MPhil, and also me as an early career researcher who's guiding an MPhil student, I don't know that I'm the best, that I was able to do everything well. So it's nice that you have more eyes looking at things when you can still change this. It gives you peace of mind. It saves time. And then the reviewers really contribute some meaningful things. They catch things that we didn't, and peer review really helped make the paper a lot better. So Qinyu recommended this as something for early career researchers and people who pursue MPhil, PhD to try and do this more as part of their thesis project, rather than you doing projects and only at the end submitting your thesis and only after that submitting the publication. Just embed this within your good. So my next claim is the following. Once we understood that registered reports are the future and where we should all be headed, and the benefits for both the community and for the authors, for us in our careers, the question is, can we even do better than that? What are registered reports not capturing? So I think peer community in registered reports is often referred to as registered reports 2.0, and it improves on a lot of things that registered reports have failed to capture. And I think it's really a next step in the revolution, addressing all sorts of other things that I talked about, like the publishers and the power that they have over us. So PCI-RR, you've had already a talk from the peer community in something. Peer community in registered reports is a relatively new journal, part of this initiative platform, which is a nonprofit, non-commercial, free, researcher-run supra-journal platform for conducting journal-style peer review of registered reports across all fields. What does it give you? A lot of things. I can't even begin to, if I'm going to go through each one of the innovations in this initiative, it's going to take a while. So I'm just going to focus on the ones that I think are the most important for us. And if you want to know more about this, then do check out this workshop on peer community in registered report. I'm going to focus on the things that made the big change for me. The big change for me was that together with Qinyu and Bill and some of the teaching assistants, I was doing regular pre-registered replications in my courses and with the undergraduate students in my courses. That's the about 100 that we've completed. And I really wanted to do this as a registered report, but how can you do this as a registered report if we do this in a one semester course, which is 3 months? And then if not in a course, how about the thesis students? Can I do this as a registered report rather than me doing everything with data collection and only then submitting to the journal? And the problem is that it can take too long. So if I submit this to a review, it can take 3-4 months to get in. I don't know how many rounds there are going to be. So that makes it very, very difficult to embed this as part of a thesis. But then came peer community and registered reports that offers something magical that no one else has ever. It's so simple that I'm just like blown away by why we haven't implemented this. And this is called a scheduled review. In a scheduled review, what happens is that six weeks before you want to submit your registered report, you submit a one-page snapshot where you say, I'm going to submit in 6 weeks. They use this snapshot that has the main hypothesis, the main design, to recruit reviewers. So on one track, you work on your registered reports. On the other track, Chris Chambers, or the recommender and peer community and registered report, go out and recruit reviewers. And everybody is focused on the deadline of the 6 weeks. So everybody knows that this is the submission deadline and this is when you need to do the review. And then they guarantee a peer review within 2 weeks. Unbelievable. Never seen anything like this. So brilliant. And the thing that makes the magic is this snapshot. In addition, what happens here is that the community does the peer review. You don't have a publisher. There is no centralized control system. This is the community reviewing the community. And the nice thing about this is once the community, a recommender from the community gives you in principle acceptance, you decide, you have the power, which journal you want to go to. Do you want to go to a big publisher, for-profit publisher, or do you want to go to open access, diamond, journals, community journals? You can even publish in peer community in something. They have a bunch of journals. And all of this, all the peer review is based on preprints. So first you preprint, put this out there, and then the peer review happens on that preprint. So everything is already open. So this really takes away all the power, I think, that the big publishers, the for-profit publishers have. If they want to get the benefits from this community, they really need to first reduce all their fees and then make everything available and support preprints. And this change is already happening because one of the interested journals is Nature Human Behavior. So I think the big names are coming in and joining this. Right now, there's about 30 journals, but hopefully in the future, many more. So scheduled reviews and the power to decide. Plus, and I love this because I've been looking for this for a very, very long time. All the peer reviews, you have the option of asking them to be identifiable and completely open. So the reviewers can get credit for this. This has a DOI. They can put this on their CV. I reviewed for peer community. And when everything is identifiable, seriously, people are so much more friendly, welcoming, supportive. It doesn't mean that they're less critical. They are critical. Sometimes this is how they establish their credibility. They're saying, I'm a good peer reviewer. Look at the good things that I contributed. There's no reason to be hostile because this is a registered report. So be constructive, check everything, and get credit for it. So of all the things that we received so far, all of them have been very, very positive, aside from one, where we had original authors brought in. And I really thought the original authors, once they're identified and open, are going to be a little bit less hostile. But the bias is so strong that I think they couldn't help themselves. But still, I think I can't imagine what would happen if they would not be identifiable. So I really feel like this is a big contributor to the quality of peer review. So these are the greatest benefits that I see. Reviews in 2 weeks, The recommenders and the reviewers are, they understand registry reports. In order to become an editor, you need to go through a test. You have open sign reviews. Everything is contained on preprints. You have 30 journals, hopefully more, that you can select from, and then you can control the level of bias. How many are we doing right now? We're doing a lot. So this year I decided I'm going to shift everything to peer community and registry reports. It doesn't matter what the committee for my tenure is going to think about this. And 15. So everybody who was thinking, yeah, maybe we should first, try a regular journal. I asked all the teams. So here you can see the way that we work. So all the 10 over here are guided thesis students. 3 of them have been already accepted in principal acceptance. The other ones already received a revise and resubmit. The other ones are register reports based on what was done in my courses. So in my courses, they wrote registered reports. And then early career researchers like Qinyu, who is now in University of Vienna, like others, Mahmoud and Jacobs, Thomas, came in, took what it is that the students did, verified everything, integrated a few things, added their own contribution. And then, as you can see, together, we submit this as a PCI-RR. And what you can see here is you have the lead author, the early career researcher. Sometimes there's more than one if you want to join us and work with other early career researchers. Then followed by the students, then followed by the teaching assistants, then me at the end, submitting this as a team. And all of these are received invitation to revise and resubmit, and I'm pretty optimistic that most of them will get an IPA. And what's amazing about this is these are thesis students, so this is part of their academic year, and by the end, when they submit their thesis, this is going to be an accepted manuscript. And then I also have some issues with my external second examiners at the University of Hong Kong that think that perhaps replications are not publishable or not important enough. And then I can just say, this is already received in principal acceptance. This is going to be published in a journal. How many thesis students do we have that actually have a publication from this process? So this helps me address everything. And I think the students are also very enthusiastic about this. In addition, one of the added benefits is that I was able to convince University of Hong Kong to fund this by doing what is called an HKU Register Reports Challenge. I told them, we get in principle acceptance for this. So now you're going to fund something that is 100% guaranteed to be published. There's no risk. Maybe it will be published, not published. So if you care about our students, our undergraduate students, as part of their thesis, as part of their experience in University of Hong Kong, to really be involved in science and do science well, rigorous, open science, then you need to fund this. And they decided, they're going to find 8,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is about $1,000 US more or less, for about 30 students, which is terrific. So if you're at the University of Hong Kong or you're working with a student at University of Hong Kong and you do a registered report, I will conduct the data collection for you up to 8,000 US dollars. Based on all sorts of criteria. So this is not just funding for those working with me. Of course, you can if you want to, but it's also for anybody who works with a student at the University of Hong Kong and gets an in-principle acceptance. So we have 4 so far. Hopefully, all the 15 will be this year, and that means that we have 15 more. So you're welcome to it. If you have an IPA and you want to work with our students, let's do it. If you want to have a look at what these look like, so these are the ones that were in principle accepted. We don't have a lot of time, but usually at this point, I show you a little bit of what that looks like. I want to say that these are by far the best science that I've done. And this says a lot because these are, undergraduates, top masters, early career researchers that go far beyond, really, when I think about the stuff that I've done during my PhD and my postdoc compared to this stuff, it just feels so misaligned. I really wish that I could redo my PhD and that I knew back then what I know now. So hopefully this helps compensate a little bit, but these are amazing because they're so well documented. Everything is very, very clear. There's no second guessing. our markdown code, just terrific. So I really invite you to go and have a look at these. And if undergraduates at University of Hong Kong can do this, you can do this too. You just need the right tools. We have a lot of resources, templates, guides, examples for you. This is what an in-principle acceptance looks like for the peer community and registry report. So Chris Chambers is the editor of all of our submissions. I think when I first announced that I'm going to submit all the UG, the undergraduate thesis, to peer community and registry reports, some of the recommenders, the editors are, I don't know why we should take part in this. We're not gonna, we don't know these undergraduate students. We don't trust what undergraduate students are doing. And then it's amazing. Chris Chambers stepped in and said, no, this is important. We want to show that undergraduates can do good work, and we want to test the scale of peer community and registry reports. So Chris Chambers on one side, we on the other side, we have about 15. So until now, there were about 180, 190 PCI-RR submissions, and about 10% of those are from our team or the students. So that's nice. And it's amazing that Chris Chambers is a busy person, very high profile, that he was willing to work with us on this. So you can see over here, we were trying to replicate all of the experiments that were published in the review by Tyler, the winner of the Nobel Prize in 2017, about mental accounting. So this is the recommendation. This is they pre-registered for us automatically on the Open Science Framework, the IPA, the in-principle acceptance. And then it tells us the journals that we are entitled to, that we are eligible to. So automatically, when we complete stage 2, we can publish in any one of these. So PeerJ, Metapsychology, Journal of Cognition, plus I think for most of these, so you have what's called PCIRR friendly journals. So they automatically will accept what we do with the stage 2 PCIRR report. But there's also interested journals, and one of the interested journals is Collabora Psychology. So I didn't even initiate this. Simin Vazir from Collabora Psychology contacted me when she saw this IPA, this in-principle acceptance, or the other one by a student, and asked me, we in Collabora really like PCIRR. Would you consider Collabora Psychology to be the venue for this? So imagine this, senior editors from journals contacting you to ask you whether you would be willing to publish this with them. This really shifts the power from the publishers to the authors. Now I can decide, do I want to submit to Collabora Psychology? Do I want to submit to Metapsychology? And even if perhaps I want to submit to a for-profit publisher, I can go to the for-profit publisher, say, I don't need any peer review from you. Everything has been done by the community. If you will grant me APC waiver for open access, then I'm willing to consider you. And then you can go through a negotiation. But all the power is within you rather than for them. In addition, as I said, open peer review. So you can see everything, the decision, all the reviews, and you can also see our reply to all of that. So over here is an example of our OSF page. First of all, the pre-registrations. The first one was done automatically. I didn't even do this, but it's registered under my name from peer community and registry report. But I also froze the folder, the PCIRR stage 1 folder in the OSF, just so we have like a good understanding of what is stage 1. And as you can see over here, you have the main manuscript with track changes, after the revision, so you can see exactly what we changed. You can see our response to the decision letter, item by item. You can also see the qual checks, the power analysis, the simulated data. So everything is open, everything is shared, everything is as should be. This is how I imagined science coming in, for my PhD, and was horrified to find that it's not. But now we have this, so now we can do this. We have all the solutions in place for this. My experience, I post a lot on Twitter, so I just added this here. I am grateful for the reviewers and how nice they were. It's nice to work with Chris Chambers, who understands open science. So even when the reviewers write some stuff like, you need to justify why you're doing replications. And Chris is like, no, we need replications. No need to justify it. It's like, if you want to add something, great, but I'm not going to take this comment. So Chris knows replication. Chris knows open science. So even when a reviewer because they're early career or because they're not experienced with replication, says something that doesn't make sense, he openly gives you the guidance on what it is that you need to follow. So it's so nice. It's so refreshing this year to work with peer community and registered reports rather than having rejection every other week. I think Qinyu was, we were hoping to do a coding of all the decision letters. And I was sending the decision letters every time to Qinyu. It's like, look at this, look at this. Every week we had a rejection with like horrifying replies. For the first time, peer community and registered report, I'm not scared of opening my email and look at the reviews. It's like, it's really nice and encouraging. Not only me, it's also other people in the Twitter community. I ask people, can you tell me what your experience is with peer community and registered report? So positive, so many good things. There was also one that wasn't as positive. So I asked John here to send what happened in the review process, and I could see some issues. But the nice thing about the recommenders in peer community and registered reports is that we know each other. We are a community. We can talk about these things. I can open this with them so we can follow up on the experience by John. But overwhelmingly, this is a very positive experience. If you want to know more about this from the actual team of peer community and registered reports, please do check this out. So Chris has a bunch of those, but also others like Charlotte and the other persons in the team. There's even a podcast session if you want back and forth. If you want articles, there's a bit on that. I think hopefully, not sure exactly when and how, but at some point I hope to also try and write an opinion piece about our experiences after we complete the 15. How much time do I have? Should I talk about our team a little bit? Maybe invite the Chinese community to join us. We have enough time?
I think, yeah. We planned
Okay,
1 hour and a half.
Okay, terrific. So here's a little bit about our team. And the main message for me is you can be part of this team. It's growing, evolving, changing, people come and go. Whatever you're into, there's a way for you to join us. So after 4 years, never imagined this would be the scale. The base of the team is, of course, the students that I teach in my courses, the undergraduate courses. So by now there's 370 who went through my courses, and about 36 guided thesis students that worked with me throughout the years. And then based on our method of taking what it is that we've done in the courses and the thesis, and then inviting early career researchers to become the lead author, the first author, to verify and work on this. Now we have a lot of lead authors, and we also have peer reviewers that contributed to this. So it's really nice to see this team, and also increasingly people in this team getting jobs, getting promoted, finding their academic path. So by now I've done 4 years of this. So it's really nice when, you know, Qinyu and the Kit and all the others are getting PhD positions, and some of the PhD students are getting postdocs, some of the postdocs are getting academic positions. I really hope that this team is going to grow and have some impact. How many have we done so far? We've done 80 with data collection completed, so pre-registered replications and extensions, and about 40 that are registered reports stage 1 that are written up. Only about half of these are led and in process. So about half of those are open for you to take lead. If you want to take lead over something that already has data, we have that for you. If you want to take lead over a registered report that has not been submitted yet, there's definitely a lot of those open for you. This is how we do the model. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but generally the way that we do the replications in my courses is that we have 2 teams of 2 students working independently on the same targets, and then at some point they peer review one another. I go on Twitter, I ask for external feedback, we do some pre-testing, and then finally we have a registered report final submission. And we don't submit this yet, but we look for an early career researcher like you to come in and take the lead in verifying everything, integrating everything, adding your own touch, and then together with me to submit this. If you want to see just how good these things are, the ones with completed reports, 2019, this is the last year that I did completed reports. You can scan this or go on this link later. 2020 and 2021, we had registered reports. So go and have a look. I think you'll be amazed but what undergraduates can do. Just go have a look at that. And at some point, we also started having an impact. So these are brought to publication. So in 2021, just look at this amazing team working together. So as you can see, all the underlined are undergraduate students in my courses, followed by teaching assistants, and then me at the end, where the first author in italics could be you, an early career researcher that comes in, takes the lead. And we're able to bring this into some really good journals like SPPS. I don't know if you're familiar with the psychology journals. Yeah, JSP are considered prominent. But for me, I take pride in the no-fee, diamond open access ones like judgment decision making, meta psychology, collaborative psychology. These are terrific. Just this year, 2022, we already have like 6 of those, and I think this year we might even exceed last year's. And it's really nice to see the impact of this team and how well these are doing. And I think what's really nice about this is that if as an early career researcher, so like Max is just a first-year PhD student, to already have a publication in judgment decision making or in collaborative psychology, it really also makes me hopeful that they will stay in the system, that they will help push and promote open science in the community. So I'm very, very encouraged by this and the growing impact. Now, don't just take my word for it. Go and listen to the students. So here's 2 examples. Nadia is now a PhD student at University of Hong Kong. She has already published 2. So both what she did with me in the course and what she did with me in her thesis is now published. Was an International Review of Social Psychology. The other one, I think, is a Journal of Experimental Social Psychology. So that's not bad for an undergraduate student last year. And I think that really helped. I think she got like a really nice scholarship from University of Hong Kong. So that's terrific. Cora doesn't even really, never thought about research. She's from the industry. So here she talks about what it means to come and from the industry and then suddenly have to do statistics and look at replications. So interesting journey. Another perspective is you can read on Psychology Today. We have a column in Psychology Today, so you can read about this. So Jian, who is in Manitoba, also from mainland China in origin. She was my classmate at HKUST. So student perspective, so Rihanna did her thesis with me, also published, so that's nice. And Hero and Max, also in Psychology Today. Max also gave us a talk recently, so that's on YouTube. So go and have a look at this. I really like them. Adrian is just a person involved in everything. So he did replications, he does meta-analysis, a lot of resources. So Adrian has also a few reflections about how he joined me and how we met. And generally, if you want to know more about our team, there's a 3-hour version summarizing all the 100 replications. So you can go on YouTube and listen to this in detail. Or if you want the summarized version, I did a reproducibility talk for Oxford last year. So that summarizes that. Let's say that you want to join us. How to do this? This is the main link. Just go and click on this. It is a Google Doc. I hope that's open in mainland China. If not, talk to me and I'll give you a different link or something that summarizes that. Things that you can do: you can take lead over completed replications and extension. You can take lead over completed registered reports. You can also collaborate with us on primer guides, opinion pieces. So for example, Qinyu is leading the primers, the guides on effect size calculation and power analysis. If you have something to contribute, if you see a mistake, you come in, it's Google Docs, you can punch in, edit. If you make a significant contribution, you just add name, you tell us what you did. And when we submit this to a journal, you can become a co-author. So we have 20 different guides and templates and tools. So in each one of them, they're open for you to contribute. So that's one example of joining us if you don't want to take over a whole publication, a whole project. Everything is summarized here. So this is the main link. This leads to my website. It tells you all the replications that we've done, all the resources that we have, everybody on our team, or you can scan this. And if you want to keep updated about what it is that we do, there's a mailing list. I update this every 2 months with all our activities. I'm very active on Twitter, as some of you may know. So that's another good way to keep in touch with me or engage with me. Everything is on my website, so go have a look. There's lots of stuff over there. But if you want a more personal touch, please do not hesitate. I do not believe in hierarchy. I try to be responsive to everybody. I have not said no to anybody who needed something or wanted to join. So even if I'm too busy, and that sometimes happens, I will connect you with other people in our team, and we'll try to make sure that we can address your needs. But please do tell us, share with us how we can help you to do better open science, meta science, register reports. So we are committed to that direction. We really hope that you can take part in this revolution as well. So that's about it for me. If Qinyu wants, I'll be happy if he can say a few words, but I'm very happy to answer questions. Qinyu, do you want to say a few things?
Yeah, I meant to share something about PCIRR instead of just RR. So my team and I were trying to submit a replication study to psychological science because that's where the original study was published. And the crazy thing about psychological science is that they had insane word limit on registered replications. Like you need to limit your introduction and discussion to something like 1,500 words, which is crazy. And we spend great efforts to cut our manuscripts. But what's even worse is that they even have limits for supplemental materials. So we really took great efforts to cut down our manuscript, to organize everything and submit our manuscript there, only to get a rejection in the end. And then now we're taking back a manuscript and reorganize everything. Well, it's just very tiring. So the one good thing about PCIRR is that it doesn't require you to commit to a specific journal. You can select your journal afterwards, but when you write your manuscript, you don't have to like do the formatting, take care of the different requirements, which can really vary across different journals. So that's something good about PCIRR that I want to highlight. And thanks, Lily, for this excellent talk. And if we have any questions from the audience, it's time to ask. And we can have a discussion here.